Hello and welcome to Prospects to Pros, presented by Invesco QQQ, the official ETF of the NCAA. We have a mailbag episode today. It's been a while. Let's hear from you guys. So we threw that out on Twitter before we did the show, got some great questions, and we are going to go over them. We're also going to go over the Heisman finalists, just a little check-in, just to talk about those for you guys and where they stack up. And to help me do that, as always, is Mr. Beast himself, Dane Brugler. How are you doing today, Dane?
I'm good. We're weird part of the calendar with college football really over now and kind of the lull between now
Army Navy
and the bowl game. Yeah, we still have Army Navy coming up.
at the under.
Yeah, no kidding. No, we had my son was the lead in the Christmas pageant last night. That was fun. Yeah, he was elfish. So Elvis, but an elf.
Clever.
And it was fun. He didn't tell us he was the lead. He told us he had a line, like thank you very much. Like he's like I got one of those lines. We go last night. He's the freaking lead. He's singing. He's like has 20 lines. I'm like, what is going on right now? It was kind of bizarre, but
so was that what you've been doing in the basement?
He's like me. Like he's
undersells it. I was just gonna say
undersell, and instead of putting pressure on himself, I'm gonna wing it. I'm gonna because he didn't practice at home. I think, and he knew if we knew, we would make him practice every day. You know,
right?
Like go recite your lines. And I think that was part of his thinking. But he's probably also like me, where he wants to wing it, and instead of putting pressure on himself about it. And hey, he did a good job. So yeah, it's fun. I did want to ask you, it's Christmas movie season.
Oh,
what are your top 3 Christmas movies? Not to put you on the spot, but I am.
Oh, God,
top 3 Christmas movies. I know you're a movie guy.
I am.
So
I know. And like Christmas, there's ones I definitely prefer. Like A Christmas Story is definitely way up there. I do appreciate Elf, but it would not make my top 3. And okay. I do love it as a modern classic. And I get, like, I'm sure the younger generations can always view that. I always loved the original Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
Oh, yeah.
That was, when I was a kid, that was one of my favorites.
Same here.
Okay.
So I don't think it gets a lot of love, but it's.
For a while, that was easily number 1 for me.
And I think it just our ages, coming up, because it came out in 94. So,
makes sense.
Right in, exactly when we're growing up, and so there's a nostalgic aspect to it, no doubt.
It wasn't a movie we owned, so it was a movie I only got to see on special, like when it came on TV. So it actually was something for me. Same with A Christmas Story. I'm a big Home Alone guy.
Oh yeah,
but we had, again, what we owned. We had Home Alone 2 before we had Home Alone 1 on VHS. So I actually give the tip to Home Alone 2, which is definitely the worst movie of the 2, but I have more of a nostalgia for that. So if I had to do a top 3, it's probably Santa Claus, Home Alone 2, and A Christmas Story would probably be my top 3 based off when I was a kid.
I like it. That's great. I think the only, because I'm with you, I'm big Home Alone, big on Santa Claus. Christmas Vacation has to be in there for me. Christmas,
that's a great one. Yeah,
I watched it last night, and it's so good. I mean, it's amazing. Every year, I find myself laughing at new parts. So that would definitely be in a 3 for me, probably with the Home Alone and Santa Claus. But yeah, there's a lot of good ones, a lot of movies to watch this time of year.
And the thing is too is I watch other movies as the weather gets cold. It's like several movies I watch every year. Draft one, but Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Okay,
it's always a winter watch. And then my wife has gotten me into watching the Harry Potter movies in succession, because I read the books as a kid. Actually, I always credit Harry Potter to getting me into reading when I was like 9 years old, give or take. And I was wondering what all the kids in Minnesota, when I moved there, were talking about this weird wizard kid. The third one came out, and I was like, all right, what are all the cool kids doing? So I started reading, but I really always credit Harry Potter to getting me into reading. But she got me into the movies because I was kind of hipster with that. No, I like the books. I don't watch the movies. And that's another winter thing for us too.
My wife's the same way, because she loved those movies, and we're waiting until our kids are a little bit older to kind of, because I've never seen them, so I'll probably catch them when.
Oh, that's fun.
We introduce them to the kids. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just thinking the same. Okay, there's like 8 or something like that.
There's 7. Well, 7 books. They made this last book into 2 movies. Which actually let it breathe a little bit, it actually made up some better viewing experience, in my opinion. They're making a TV series too. They're making an HBO Harry Potter series, which I think is a great idea, but I'm curious how
They
that's
can
going
make
to
money off of it. They'll do
go.
it. That's for sure.
Exactly. IP
Uh, I,
property, baby.
I was just thinking about this because James Bond movies, they must have do marathons on
Yes.
like TBS when I was a kid
Yes.
because I associate this time of the year with James Bond and 007 movies. So
Yes.
most of them are on, I think, on Amazon Prime right now. So I've been
Yes.
going through those as well, and
We have
you know,
two. I can't believe you said that.
really,
My
yeah,
wife was like, "Let's watch all the Daniel Craig ones." So we watched
oh
Casino
yeah,
Royale, and that reminds me always of Thanksgiving.
okay,
So okay, Beller is telling us it's called the 007 Days of Christmas. So that's fun. We
really,
yeah, but no, that's funny you say that because they used to be on marathons all the time, and I want to say, yeah, one of the channels was like Spike TV or it used to be TNN, maybe. But they would have them. I remember watching Moonraker,
mm-hmm.
Octopussy, watching
Oh
all
yeah,
those 70s ones. Oh yeah, Goldfinger. Yeah, so Spike did it. Yeah, okay, thank you, Beller. But yeah, no, that's so funny you say that because we watched Casino Royale. It's probably the first time in like a decade I've watched it, and then we
oh, it's
watched
so good.
oh, so good. It actually aged really well.
Yes,
And then
I mean,
Quantum so
the poker scenes are a little
yeah, yeah,
unrealistic,
a little
but
into exposition
yes,
going on
right.
during them. Yeah,
But
those are
still a
called
great
coolers
great
in
flick.
poker. Yeah, where it's
One of the better openings in that movie for
yes,
sure.
the black and white. I forgot all the
It
stuff. Yeah.
that and then, yeah, all the stuff at the construction site.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so many good villain in that one.
Great villain. Quantum of
Um,
Solace was it's
yeah,
okay.
but I mean, Skyfall was
Skyfall's the best. I love
yeah,
Skyfall so
it's
much. My
amazing.
friend, yes, loves Skyfall. All right, so enough of all of that.
What
This is great.
podcast is this
I can
again?
keep talking. I can keep talking about this though. I know it's so funny about the 007 stuff because it's. I'm also reading a book called The Wager. It's really good. But no, it's so we're talking about Heisman finalists to start. So that's Jayden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr., Bo Nix, and Michael Penix. That was in alphabetical order and not preference, so no one yell at me. But I will think these four have been announced as the finalists. They're off to New York. I think Daniels has been one of the most fun like guys to watch in all of football this year. And I just want to start with him because just watching Jayden Daniels has been a pleasure because he is such an exciting player. And it's been really fun as a prospect wise as well to see his growth as a player, though not just last year, but this year as well. But that's why I just want to start with my comment. But I know Dane, you've had similar feelings about Daniels as well.
Yeah, and well, let me just ask you real quick. Would it be a surprise to you if he does not win? I mean, he's the clear favorite going in.
Yeah,
He's been the favorite for at least a month, at least in my opinion. I'm
yeah,
not sure what the betting odds say, but
I
would
think
it
he
be a
is.
surprise to you if Jane Daniels does not win?
I would be I would be surprised. That would be the biggest surprise if he did not win to me.
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah,
I think especially what happened last Friday in the Oregon Washington game and
right.
what what could the Knicks could have done they did not do. But no, I think just Daniels, yeah, just his play, the numbers pop. They're truly wow numbers, and it's truly it
Yeah,
feels like him doing a lot. So I he would have been my pick, I think, for this if I had a vote. It seems like there's 5,000 voters out there. But what
yeah.
about you? You feel the same way?
Yeah, I do. I mean, Jane Daniels has been and look, he benefits from an awesome wide receiver group,
Yeah.
a really good offensive line that has given him time to work in the pocket. But his ability to create explosives is something that is undeniable with his arm, with his legs. And he's doing it with a confident flair that we didn't always see when he was an underclassman. He's doing it with calm eyes. He is doing it with there's a process to what he's doing.
Yeah.
And you couldn't always say that when you watched, even last year when you watched him. That was one of the big knocks was the decision making. And why did you do this? Why did your eyes take you here? But this year, you can understand. Oh, so he saw this pre snap. Okay, I see what. Oh, yep,
Yep.
connecting the dots. So he's figuring things out, and he's an older player. He's a fifth-year senior, fifth-year starter. So on one hand, you kind of expect that from him to get better and better and better. But to his credit, he's been able to take it to heights we didn't really. I don't think
Right.
anybody really saw it going to this level. But credit to him, he should be the Heisman winner with some of the. I mean, he leads the country in so many areas that I care about, especially those explosive plays.
Mhm.
But and again, I mean, he was 7th overall in my mock draft, and I even wrote in my mock draft at I promise you're going to start seeing him in the top 10 of
Oh, yeah.
more mock drafts as these things come out. And already. I've seen it a few this week. So it's and it's not. I don't think it's trying to jump the gun. It's talking to NFL scouts. That's
Yeah,
kind of where they said this is heading.
it feels like it.
Because right, the bottom line with Jayden Daniels, the more you watch him, the more you run out of reasons why he can't be an impact starter at the
That's
next level,
exactly it.
and plain and simple. So I think by the time, as long as he doesn't stub his toe between now and April, we'll see if he actually plays in the Senior Bowl. We'll see what he does at the combine, all that. But and I don't even think he's announced if he's playing in the bowl game or not for LSU. We'll have to wait
I
and
hope
see
he
on
doesn't.
that.
Go
But
Badgers.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, let the backup quarterback get some
Yeah,
reps.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, right. But so we'll see what happens here in the next few months. But yeah, he has
Yeah,
put himself in a really enviable spot.
yeah.
And we'll be talking about more about Jayden Daniels here more with some of these questions we got.
He's earned this, which I think is
Mhm.
really cool. There and you talk about the more you watch him, and I think that's what it is for me. And I thought when you kept saying it, we've had conversations about Daniel several times, but just like, oh, it felt like the book was written on him. And it was just like, actually, it is not. He keeps adding to his game. But what you're talking about too is his ability to find answers. The flash plays, of course, him running around and creating plays with his legs and a couple, big wow throws to his talented receivers. But when you watch him on film, and I harp on this all the time, down to down sustainability. This is
Mm,
what guys, even like a guy like Jordan Love is doing right now, where they have an answer to every problem that the defense is solving. And I'm not even just saying, oh, the coverage answer, and they go to the right read. When stuff goes askew, they have an answer with their legs. They do it quickly, or the throwaway, or the check down, or the Tom Brady miss where they throw it at the legs of the receiver, that it's supposed to take an 8-yard sack. Hey, it's just a neutral play, no yards are gained or lost. And I think that's where you're saying the more you watch him, the more he grows on you. And it's just really cool. On top of it, having athletic traits and pretty good arm and all
mhm.
those types of things. So it's like you said, it's because of him. Like, how is this not an impact guy? I had him at 20 in my mock, and I felt good about it then. And it's like, wow, I might have been low. Might have been like, maybe some of those other teams. You gave him to the Bucks, I believe.
Tampa, yeah,
Yeah,
and that's funny. I heard from a lot of Giants fans who the Giants were picking 5 in that mock draft.
yeah,
Who, why'd we pass on Jayden Daniels? So it's I think more and more fans are
yes.
on board with
If he wins
this,
the
and
Heisman, wait until what happens after
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, it's funny. The Heisman, I used to, really push against it being, like it doesn't matter if he wins the Heisman. It's not going to
Indicative,
affect
yeah.
the draft. But you'll go back the Heisman winners the last 10 years. They've all
It's all
been
name guys.
high
Yeah,
picks. I mean,
yeah,
just the last few years, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young. I mean, you go on, and it's a lot of early top 5, top 3
yep,
picks. Yeah.
yeah. I
So
know. It's no more Eric Crouches.
right.
Which actually there's a relevant question about that, but we'll get to in a minute. But talking about any notes on the other finalists, we can go Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't know how much more poetic we need to wax about him.
I was so happy he got invited because
Yeah,
he
talk
might not
about
even
best
win the
player.
yeah, he might not even win the Blitnikoff because there are
That's
better, or no, I shouldn't say better. There are receivers with better stats.
that might be one of the
Uh,
best Blitnikoffs, kind of like even just
yeah,
finalists, but even semifinalist list when you look the
I
names longer.
I have no problem if Malik Neighbors wins a Blitnikoff.
No,
I totally get it. Malik Neighbors has been LSU wide receiver has been awesome this year. In my opinion, he is wide receiver 2 in this draft. I think
okay,
in my
I get it.
I'm always going to keep an open mind, but for
Yeah,
me, I think he's wide receiver 2, and I don't see myself coming off that throughout the rest of the process. It's Roma Dunze and Keon Coleman fighting for wide receiver 3. In my opinion,
I totally get it.
we'll
I'm a
we'll see.
Dunze. I'm a Dunze because he's just a receiver after my own heart.
Sure,
But
sure.
but I Neighbors is a guy I thought I had an idea of. More I watch him, his skill set is like what you prize in the NFL
Yeah.
right now. The
Oh yeah.
ability to create an explosive play is the number one thing.
There's
You
some
just talked about it with the receiver, the quarterback, but
right.
for a receiver to take a 5-yard run and take it to the house or create an explosive, that's one of the
There
most prized
there's
things right now.
some Garrett Wilson there.
Yeah,
Just stylistically, there's some Garrett Wilson there. I Marvin Harrison Jr. though, the best
yeah.
player that I
Back to
saw
number
this year.
one.
Right. And
Yeah,
so he's like I said, he might not even win the Biletnikoff, but I'm glad he's gonna get his flowers in New York City, be on this stage, be in that spotlight. He's
yeah.
not gonna win. And I understand that. But he was the best player I saw this year. So I'm just glad he got invited.
He's been awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's only answered. I didn't have many questions about him, but it's just like there's not much to doubt with him. So yeah, like you're saying, it's cool to see the accolades as opposed to us just going the guy that's 600, 700 yards, maybe going top three or something like that.
Right.
And then
Well, and he was still he had over 1,000 yards. He had
oh
14
yeah,
touchdowns this year.
and big plays.
And when you factor in, okay, Malik Neighbors, what he did with the Heisman front runner and Jayden Daniels, Rome Odunze, what he did with a Heisman finalist, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. with a quarterback who is not even on the roster anymore at Ohio
I know.
State. He did it with an average. And again, I go back to that Penn State tape, watching him just cook Kalen King up and
Oh,
down
I
the
know.
field, and the ball placement of some of these throws, and he just consistently Harrison bailing him out. Without Marvin Harrison Jr., Ohio State, I don't
Oh,
know, 3-loss team maybe this year. I don't know. They are. He was that offense more, and when the quarterback was very average, and so the fact that he was able to have the production that he did was just really impressive.
was how much attention got put on him, and then
Oh
other
yeah.
ways they try to use him, he excelled at. It's awesome. But yeah, we
hmm
might see a little Cam Ward in Columbus. Is that the current rumor right now?
I've heard so many
Oh,
rumors.
I'm sure. Oh
I
my god, the
mean,
transfer portal quarterbacks. It's like
oh my goodness. I mean,
it's basically all
Michael.
my QB3s this year. It's Riley
Well,
Leonard, Tyler Van Dyke,
yeah, it's funny how and some guys that are like Michael Pratt, Tulane, who
Michael Pratt. I know.
I think most expect him to go to the NFL, but he's hearing from a lot of teams that are throwing money at him, at least
Mhm.
through the NIL collectives, to stay in college one more year and kind of be the Sam Hartman, the hired gun for 1 year before going to the NFL. So
Right.
and Pratt's probably a third, fourth round pick. So he has something to think about for sure.
Can win a lot of games if he goes to the
Yeah,
right team. He could
right.
help out a lot of teams. Yeah,
It's
so
it's it's a whole new ball game with
it
this
is.
with the transfer portal and NIL, and
All these guys would be
it's
declaring if this was
yeah,
a
a
few
lot of
years ago.
them.
A lot
Sure.
of them because they would just be, "Oh, well, I gotta get my money now." Like, "Hey, I gotta do this." I know it's crazy and
Mm.
just notable names. Well, speaking of transfer quarterbacks, two of them ended up being
Hmm.
finalists, Bo Nix and Michael Penix.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of solidified what our kind of feelings on Nix and Penix are for now, at least regular season tape and everything.
Well,
Watching
hey,
them,
you saw them live, both of them,
yes, yes,
Friday night
yeah,
in the stands, there in Vegas. Obviously you watched these guys before, so you
yeah.
have your
But in
opinion
person's
going
always
in.
different.
Right. So seeing them both live, what were your takeaways from Friday night?
I was well, those Washington receivers sure are good. That's the number one thing.
Yeah.
I would say Penix has a little more zip to his arm than maybe I gave him credit for. Maybe put in person. Some of those throws they let him use it as well.
Mhm.
Not as good as I actually came away thinking he's a lesser athlete than I thought he would be. There's a couple
Yeah.
times he was trying to pull away on corners and he was trying to scramble and whatnot, and then it just was not happening. He wasn't really getting to the edge. So that, having said that, Nix on the other hand, was a little bit more impressive physically than I thought he would be. I remember asking you earlier this year. I was like, "What is his size? Like, is that official?" But I would say in person, him moving and everything. But then also, his arm did not impress me as much. I kind of feel the same how I felt on tape, where I think I was underrating Penix's arm strength, but his processing and everything exactly the same. I had a great
Yeah.
angle too. I was at kind of like a isometric view from like the corner end zone. So it was
Okay.
like I had kind of an end
Yeah.
zone sideline view on both sides. And watching Penix a couple times, I it was just that hair late throwing the
Mhm.
ball. And I could see it developing from my angle. So it's even in person, I could see it was almost like live all 22. Literally, you're watching the game. But I could see him not pulling that trigger. And I was like, okay, so that is how it feels on when I'm watching him on tape, is how it feels when I'm watching him in person. But they were still ended up being good plays. But that's the difference between NFL
Yeah.
anticipation and college high level anticipation.
That long throw, the deep throw to McMillan,
That's the one I'm thinking of.
yeah, if he like, yeah, it was an explosive play,
Huge throw.
but if he throws it a hair earlier instead of waiting for him to come
Yep.
open, it's a touchdown.
That's
And that's a
literally the
big.
exact play I'm thinking of, is
Yeah,
that
exactly.
exact throw.
I
Yes.
flagged that play too as,
Yes.
yeah, like that's Twitter's blowing up. People are loving this, but on
Huge
tape,
play.
he waited till he got clear on
Yes.
the kind of was it a corner route and
Yeah.
uh it,
It was a big long over route, like a
yeah, right,
high over route, but that's exactly what you're thinking of. Is it was a play, it's
right.
a shot play to him. And that's the thing. It's
hmm
like that's where you're going. Like, so
Yeah.
Let it rip.
And he almost ran out of real estate because it was right up
Yes.
against the sideline, and if he throws it just a hair earlier and anticipates that,
Yeah.
it's a touchdown, yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah, I know. So that's kind of came in person, but it's yeah, kind of it's what I felt in film. I like my grade was on moved, good or bad with either, and just maybe some more traits things seeing him in person, which always helps.
Mhm.
But we're gonna get to the mailbag now because I'm excited to see who does win a lot of those awards because it's like I don't know. You mentioning the Blitnikoff is gonna be very interesting because
Yeah.
everybody has a lot of feelings about that award. It seems like on Twitter. But going in, I mentioned Eric Crouch, and that leads us to maybe our first question from the mailbag, which was from ZD on Twitter, who asked which day one and day two prospects could change
Mm.
positions in the NFL. See where I was getting at with the Crouch thing.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, I think he was a third rounder. But
Mhm.
yes, but yeah, I was curious actually where you would go with this. I had a couple thoughts, more DB related, which aren't as fun, but I was curious what maybe you would think.
I went to the offensive line. I think that's
Yeah, yeah,
where, you usually see the most position changes. It's the most common. This year, definitely several candidates, including a few potential first rounders. Someone that you saw Friday night, Washington left tackle, Troy Fontenot. We've talked about him a ton on this pod. He left tackle feet, and he's got the length, 34.5-inch arms. But the style and the blocking aesthetics, it just most teams are projecting him inside the guard, and I totally get it. The first touchdown that Washington had Friday night, the pin pull design,
yeah,
Fontenot got a chance to show off his range.
yep.
Really, just besides, I think he had one flag, with a holding penalty on Friday night. Besides that, he was terrific all night.
The guy beat him
Um,
inside. I can't remember. I'm
I
trying to
think it was
remember.
Jordan Birch.
Yeah, yeah,
That's where he will struggle with length
yeah,
at times. Guy when they can get him into his chest, use that long arm. Yeah,
yeah. No, no, that's a good one. I had Graham Barton, same kind
I
of discussion point. Like
that's
he's gonna be a
that's the
guard.
next guy. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think he's gonna be a center. I think he's gonna
Oh, nice.
be
Okay.
I think he's gonna be the best center in this class. Because he actually played center as a freshman,
Right.
and with Frazier, the West Virginia center, now, he broke his leg. And by the
Mhm.
way, did you see that clip of him getting off the field when it happened?
Oh no, did you try to walk it off?
I mean, he literally was as fast as he could, was crawling off. Like, he knew it immediately. He knew it happened,
Yeah,
and they caught it all on video. As soon as it happened, he didn't even, like, hesitate and, like, call out in pain or anything.
yeah.
He just started crawling as fast as he could to the sideline, and then they stopped it. The refs were like, "Oh, wow, this is bad. We gotta shut the play down." But, I mean, it was
Did
remarkable to see. Talk about a team first guy,
yeah.
just broke his leg, and to have the wherewithal to not for a second think, "Oh, woe was me," and, "Oh, this really hurts." It's, "Oh, I need to get off the field so, the
I gotta
offense can
watch
keep
it.
going." Oh, it's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
that's
Uh,
that's awesome. It reminds me of a hockey player trying to crawl back to the bench, like when they're
yeah,
skating because they don't
right?
want to do like the legal substitution stuff. So yeah, that no, that's crazy.
But back to what talking about these centers,
Yeah.
with Frazier out, I think Barton is gonna be the first center drafted this year, and I think he could be, like I said, in the first round. I will almost guarantee you most of his snaps at the Senior Bowl will come at center. That'll be
Okay.
big for him.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, and so I do think guard center is his best spot, but won't be surprised if he's a starting center in the NFL next year. He's smart. The way he stays centered to blocks is outstanding. Really
Mhm.
strong hands.
Yep.
Just a really good player. So yeah, Graham
Balance.
Barton's. Yeah, I mean, he's
Yeah.
every year if we feel like we have one, Cody Whitehair or last year Skaronski, the tackle who doesn't have the great arm length, moves inside, ends up being a really good pro.
Yeah, that's what my dad did with Matt Burke. Matt Burke was a Harvard left
Turned
tackle,
out
moved
okay. Yeah.
turned out okay, moved him to center. Jeff Christie was a fullback, moved to center. He
Oh,
was
wow.
the OG Jason Kelsey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I drafted him on Madden I do it in franchise mode.
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
love to get him. Sure.
Especially him and the Bucks. Yeah, but those guys that moving to center is like one of those. Rodney Hudson at Florida
Yeah.
State, and then ending up
Mhm.
at center was another one. But he was just such a terrible athlete. But it was like you just got to get him on the field somehow. So center
Right.
center it is. Let's use that. But no,
Uh,
that's awesome to hear about Barton.
yeah, and I wanna throw out Jordan Morgan too, the Arizona left tackle. I
Oh yeah,
think he's,
bump aside. Yeah,
I mean, he's 34-inch arms. He's a good athlete. Just some of that lateral range is not ideal for the tackle. And so
right.
I think it's kind of 50-50. Some teams will see him at tackle, some will bump him inside the guard. A third round type of player who I think is going to be back inside. Dominic Pooney from Kansas. Not as much of a projection because he played guard last season, but great backstory. He started out Division II Central Missouri. He was teammates with his 2 older brothers. So not many guys can say that they played college football with 2 of his older brothers. He transferred up to Kansas. Pretty big bet on himself. Looked pretty good last year. Looked even better this year at left tackle. But yeah, I think he's I think a strong week at the Senior Bowl kind of solidify himself as a top 100 guy as a guard prospect.
Yeah, I know a lot of teams like him, and I know watching Kansas, I like him. Watch more Kansas football than I ever have. Oh,
Yeah.
probably that's a lie. 2008-ish Kansas, 2007-8 Kansas was a lot of fun too.
Hell, we were ranked top 5 in the country.
Yeah,
and,
that Mizzou Kansas game in 2007 with some of that comes on our channel all the time. Chase Daniel, so it's
Right?
it's I know those games though; those live in my memory. Yeah, my DB one was Keelan King at safety. Was I was curious.
Interesting.
Maybe I would give him a chance there if like I would obviously try my corner, but saying like I
Mhm.
don't know. I always my initial grade on him. I think we both came kind of lowered on him. I still think he's a fine player.
Sure.
I was like, man, I think he would be best in like a Fangio type defense cut where they use some cover 2 and cover 6 stuff, like more of a zone heavy corner, like true zone heavy corner, and not some more of the matchy Seattle type guys. And that kind of those guys actually sometimes transition to safety. Okay, his size is not great.
So he's
For
about 190.
190. I know that was my one thing, but I don't know his skill set at least because I feel like he has
Right.
to have eyes on the quarterback to affect the game the best, as opposed to maybe being manned up, or maybe the Marvin Harrison snaps from both years are burned into my memory. But I don't know. That was just one I like transition. I would maybe try if like corner it doesn't really stick for him. But no, that was one. Cooper DeJean, of course, could just play
So
whatever.
that's
Yeah, that's the obvious one.
He
That's
could play
cheating.
a linebacker, and I wouldn't
Seriously
really be
though,
surprised.
he could be a dime linebacker and be
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah,
right. He did it. He played.
he did it. Yeah,
What they call it, maybe the cash. I can't remember what they call it in Iowa's defense. Their scheme. I think it's cash. But yeah, he'll play in the box. He'll play. He's got experience all over the secondary and all over that back seven.
and yeah,
Go back and watch some of his basketball highlights. Oh my gosh, this kid
windmills and
in
stuff.
middle school doing these dunks at 5'10", not even. I just crazy athlete.
That I know. People are gonna love him. He's been such a joy to watch this year. I'm so
He's
sad when he got
fun.
hurt. He is. He's just a
I
fun
know.
football player.
They could have used him
Could have
against
used him.
Michigan. That's
I
for
know.
sure.
That was a drag of a first half.
Well, do you know how he got hurt in practice? Actually, practicing with the offense. So they were
Oh,
trying to
the
get
Joe
a spark,
Thomas.
right? Oh, God. Playing Joe Thomas at defensive end.
Got hurt.
Can you imagine if Twitter was around for that? Like, I don't think a lot of people realize that Joe Thomas tore his ACL. I think it was at bowl game.
It was a bowl game. Yeah.
Yeah, playing defensive end as a Jew. Like, I don't. The Twitter would go nuts if that
Nuts.
happened, or if it was around when that happened.
And
But
some Florida bowl game too, not like the
yeah,
Rose Bowl
right.
or anything. It was like, I think it was probably the one they're playing in today. They used to be the Outback Bowl or this year.
Right. Yeah, but no, Joe Thomas did okay for himself.
Yeah, he still ended up being number 3 overall and playing every snap.
Right. Just went into the Hall of Fame, so not bad.
Yeah, it's okay. A couple of these defensive linemen, Tuamolu, Trice, and everything. It's not more of a position switch. It's just that I think that they're going to have some use in passing downs in the NFL inside. And I think that's gonna be really interesting to watch how certain teams I think are gonna really like those guys more than others, which we've talked about a lot. They're pocket pusher more types, but I think that it's not a position switch; it's more of a role that they might lean into at the NFL level. So those guys I kind of want to just shout out because I could maybe see I could see that path. I could see them kicking inside with some team, and just like, all right, you're kicking inside on passing downs and helping out our bendy edge rushers on the outside.
One more that I'll mention too, and it's because I've heard this from scouts, is the Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton. Possibly, he's going to get a chance at as a quarterback.
Yeah.
His arm is one of the most special arms in terms of velocity and pure power that I've ever seen. But scouts will bring up like Logan Thomas, who a 4th round pick at quarterback out of Virginia Tech. Consistency was always an issue for him. Eventually moves to tight end.
Yep.
That might be a realistic path for Milton, who's probably a 4.60 type of athlete. Someone that at least could be a path for him if quarterback if it doesn't work out. So, but I do think he'll get a shot at quarterback. The arm is just it's too amazing. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's what my dad did. He was a college
mm,
quarterback and blew out his shoulder and lasted one day and moved to tight end. The Blake
mhm.
Bell is another
Oh
quarterback
yeah,
who moved to tight
Oklahoma.
end.
Mm,
Oklahoma, the Belldozer.
right.
Even though he was basically used like a fullback anyways in college. So
Who's the Buffalo tight end? Oh, went to the Eagles. They're trying him at tight end. Oh gosh,
yeah, the former quarterback. Oh, University of
Jackson.
Buffalo. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jackson,
yeah. Oh
Tyree
yeah, sorry,
Jackson.
man. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of the Bills, and I was like,
Right,
actually, there
right,
was a guy that switched
right.
over to tight end. So I was trying to think of that. No, yes, that was another one. That's the classic. That's the classic switch. There was the Nebraska Omaha quarterback that ended up playing tight end for the Jags and the Bears. I'm blanking on his name right now. But there's another
Yeah.
one. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
the classic transition for these guys.
Right.
I know if you all look, they're all 6'4", 6'5". Next question from Ricky Wilson 87. Can Fuaga Talis, is that how you say it? Talis Fuaga from Oregon State and Amarius Mims from Georgia play both tackle positions, meaning left or right tackle, or just one?
Mm.
Dane, what do you think about this question?
Yeah, and this is always an interesting one because you can't just assume, right? You
Right.
know, it's and I think with Fuaga, I actually think he might be best at guard. I know some teams have him projected inside because his feet can get tied up a little bit
Mhm.
versus speed.
He's so
And
wide too.
yeah, and what's his strength? It's as a run blocker. It's when he
Yeah.
uses his hands. And
Yep.
so I'm not projecting Fuaga as someone you want protecting the blind side. I think he's going to be more of a right tackle, maybe even better inside a guard. Mims is the interesting one.
Oh
He
yeah.
is. I mean, I've kind of professed my love for him before. He's the most gifted, one of the most gifted players in the country. The movement skills at 6'7", 330 are just ridiculous.
Mhm.
It sucked to see him exit the SEC title game after just I think it was 11 plays at another ankle injury. He had that
Yeah.
tightrope surgery back in September, missed half the season. He's got a grand total of like 8 starts to his name. Doesn't have a ton of experience, but again, the talent is off the
Mhm.
charts. And if he declares, like I'm told he will, it's going to be a really interesting evaluation because it will take a leap of faith. But to
Yes.
the original question, Mims was a right tackle only in college. Didn't play another snap at a different position. It was a little surprising he didn't move to the left side when Broderick Jones left for the draft after last season.
Yeah.
So
I was
you talk
curious
to the
about
coach.
that.
If you're a scout, you talk to the coaches, try to figure out, okay, was it just continuity? You liked what he did at right tackle last year in the college football playoffs, so he just wanted to keep him there. I have no doubts that he has the physical traits to do it, but
Yeah.
this is where also those private workouts are
Yes.
important. Having your offensive line coach work him out in a left tackle stance and seeing the footwork, seeing how he does just in a different spot, different position, how natural does he look? That's where I think teams will rely on to really project him. Is he a right tackle only, or
Yeah.
is he a guy that has that position versatility?
Yeah. It's the Tyron Smith that the
Right.
just draft the freak. And oh
Yep.
yeah, there's plenty of flashes on tape. I mean, even in those 11 snaps, Mims had a pancake on a screen, I think, or somewhere he was on the second level, and he just tossed a guy about
Yeah,
off the
that
screen.
first touchdown they had, I mean, they
Yep.
ran it right to on the right side,
Yeah.
and the right guard and right
It's
tackle just cleared the way.
Yeah, it's not just athleticism. I mean, it is athleticism with him, but it's
Sure.
at least the tape is real football tape. It's not like, oh, well, we gotta, oh man, but maybe he can figure it out. It's
That
he
Ohio
remi-
State tape last year was the best
It's fantastic.
offensive tackle tape that I watched
It
last
was
year, and
fantastic.
he was number 5 overall in my preseason top 50 just because of that tape alone, even
Yeah,
though we just don't have a ton of body of work for him
yeah.
yet, but man,
Teams
is
are
he
gonna love him.
so talented. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
like I said,
it's
his tape's good. Like
yes, and
that's
if
what
you're gonna
makes it
take,
easy.
and that's I had him going to Buffalo fans to not like that in the first round
Really,
taking a tackle, even though I mean
they should.
neither of their tackles are under contract after next season. To
That was a good
get a
point by
guy
you. I
like
saw that.
Mims,
Yeah,
that I really like that fit, but I mean I get it. This is a team that wants to win now.
yeah.
But
But that's
yeah,
the thing. It's hard to get an elite guy, and this guy has the
that's
traits of being an elite guy.
he
That's
does. He
and,
definitely does.
and I've gotten to the thinking and as because a lot's been made for okay, oh he's right side only, or is he a right tackle? I remember when Tristan Wirfs was coming out, and I've
Right.
really gotten to the thinking where it is like baseball pitchers, where it's like, of course you prefer the lefty But if I'm not, the righty's the righty, like, because just where everybody lines up these days in the NFL, pass rusher wise, it's not as big left
Right.
and right anymore. It's they're just going to find your weak point anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, if the
And, and,
guy's
and,
more naturally on
and
the right, play him on the right, fine.
that honestly, that is a great example of doing your homework when you're a scout, because guys that went into Iowa, you find out Tristan Wirfs played right tackle because the left tackle couldn't play right tackle. The
Correct.
left tackle, Alaric Jackson, had to play. I believe it was Alaric Jackson had to play left
He's
tackle.
playing well right now.
So I mean, it was something that that they knew Tristan Wirfs could really play anywhere on that offensive line. He could play all 5 spots, but to get the best 5 on the field, they had to keep the left tackle, and that meant Wirfs on the right side. And it wasn't a case of, oh, he's a right tackle only. And obviously, we're seeing that in the NFL
Right.
with how he's doing this year. So
Playing like an
yeah,
all pro.
right. But that's the job of scouts, is to figure that out. What's the
Yep.
context here? Can he really not play right tackle, or can he really not move to the other side? It's just not natural for him, or is there more of an explanation here? So yeah,
That's a great point.
and on JC Latham, another one. We have to kind of figure that out. Who a really good right tackle, but is he a right tackle only? He played left tackle at IMG Academy in high school. But since he's been at Alabama, has not played a snap at left tackle, and some thought he might move to the left side this year. They kept him at right tackle for continuity. Another thing that scouts will be trying to figure out, nail down just exactly why he stayed at right tackle, if there's anything else besides just what we see on the surface.
My scouting friend, and I gotta find the text. He watched, it's not his area, but he watched Latham, and he gave me a one-liner. He said that to their scout, and I have to read it because it's worth reading because it was so funny. He said his one-liner is like, here we go. One sec. It's perfect. Sorry about this, but it's great.
Watching him in the SEC title game, oh my gosh.
He said, after watching him, my one-liner is like Dante's Inferno. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Because
once he gets his hands on you,
it's
over.
Done.
Like Georgia's got some pretty good defensive linemen, and watching these big, powerful defensive linemen just squirm and not being able to gain their freedom once he puts his hands on you, it's something to watch. He is the strongest player in this draft, and he's not a perfect prospect. I mean, there are times he got beat a few times inside.
He doesn't get depth in his set. That's the one thing I got to figure out with him, why he does that. That's another thing you want to ask, like why you do that. He doesn't get back, and
I think it affects his aiming points with some of the placement of because he has really violent hands, really strong hands, but sometimes when his sets are off, the placement of his hands are outside on the outside shoulder, or and
because he tries to knock guys out. Yeah,
he wants to be.
He tries to stun them every time. Yeah,
right. And he gave himself the nickname TK for Trench King. So you always have to wonder about the self-given nicknames. But hey, you know what? He embraces that bully role, and I mean, he is really, really good player. And again, he's young. He's still just 20 years old.
Yep.
There's going to be some, just in terms of on-field discipline and consistency, needs to get better. But the play strength and the way he moves, really, really impressive. I mean, I won't say locked into the top 10, but to me, he's locked into OT3 and a guy that I can't see lasting very long on draft night.
I'm right there with you. True lottery pick. Yeah.
Right.
I think Mims is too. I'm right there with you too. It's a great tackle class. It's fun. Next question from Chris Henley. Randy Miller has Jayden Daniels over Drake May. And we talked about a little bit of Daniels, so that was great. If you were going to make the case against Drake May, what would your argument be?
Randy Mueller, of course, former NFL GM, now could be read and heard on The Athletic. Yeah. He's been doing this a long time. So when he brings a really interesting perspective, and having Daniels over May, I think perfectly illustrates what I've been saying since the start. Is there's rarely a consensus when it comes to quarterback rankings in the draft, from team to team, from evaluator to evaluator. And it's true again this year. And I know some NFL scouts who believe May is the best quarterback in this draft, plain and simple. Others, I think, no question, they believe Caleb's the top quarterback. I haven't heard anyone say Jayden Daniels is the top quarterback at 1, but I think they see him as a top 10 guy, like we mentioned. So, but back to the question, the case against May, it comes down to some of the reckless tendencies.
Yes, that's it.
His arm gets juiced up at times. He'll miss some layups, some really ill-advised throws when and it's really a lot of things we've been saying about Caleb. Tries to put that superhero cape on,
Yep.
and he's getting sacked. And before he goes down, he's trying to throw up a prayer, and it's like, just maybe live to see the next play instead of putting the ball in harm's way like that. So, and you could look back at the last 2 games he has played at Clemson, at NC State. Didn't look like QB1 on those tapes. Now the pass protection was bad.
Well,
I have no clue what the receivers were doing out there. They gave up on routes. They're not getting open. I mean, the tape was rough for that entire offense. But you don't want to have to make excuses for your quarterback one, right? And so there are more reasons than excuses. But at the same time, you wish it wasn't like that. And so, I mean, if you're going to make a case against Drake May, especially in terms of him against Jayden Daniels, that's what I would say.
There's no perfect prospect ever. It's like even our guys that were like number 1, this guy's a great. It's like, yeah, they still have blemishes, and
Sure.
that's where I'm in with May, is that the heat check moments, which is fitting because of his basketball, family with basketball and everything, is that, like you said, I liked how you said it, his arm gets juiced up sometimes where he's feeling it, and then he tries to fire one in, and he has the classic line drive thrower spray. Certain guys, just because of their throw types, Herbert's like this, where it's like, oh, he's inaccurate. It's like, no, he just missed. When he does miss, it's the worst miss you've ever seen, because they're line drive throwers and they just go. So it's not that kind of, as someone that had a little bit of a softer arm, we arc it in there. That's why Mac Jones and those guys, they arc that thing in there. They lob that thing in there. They don't miss as wildly. But they just have it's not inaccuracy. It's just the
right.
one-off sprays. But I would say
that's why Justin Herbert's my comp, the good and the bad,
good and bad
with Drake May. Yeah.
How Herbert played this year, where he's playing with a little bit more FU, and I think just because of the Chargers situation, this is the most
he has to, right?
Has to. This is the most Herbert's ever scrambled. Like he's truly like put the team on my back. That's what I think May can be, because he has more recklessness to him than Herbert did coming out of Oregon. Also, just a huge reminder, he's a redshirt sophomore at quarterback, which is pretty insane, that him and Caleb being younger as well. But the biggest negatives too is also that, yes, he's a little too aggressive. Heat check. Last year he would work backwards in the pocket trying to make a play, which is a no. This year he's gotten way better stepping up into the pocket and trying to work out. Once in a while he will bail out, but like you said, some of that's from the O-line, and some of that's from, there's 2 guys on this route because we're trying to max protect our O-line. The O-line still lets up something in the interior, and there's only 2 guys out on routes, and he's trying to create something. So like you said, you're not trying to create excuses, but there are some answers to it. I would say that his ability, like to operate in structure and in the pocket and his eyes, all to me have passed the smell test. So that's why maybe I'm not as concerned as maybe some other guys where I'm like, oh, he's a run around guy. May runs around, and when we watch all 22, it helps bring a perspective when he has to. And that's a huge difference, I think, for me at least. But I do think some recklessness does come up. But again,
and his age being, he just turned 21 years old. He's 2 full years younger than Jayden Daniels. And so, if Jayden Daniels, after his 3rd year in college, was a late round pick, so it's like there's context involved here with just whenever you do quarterback evaluation, when you do any evaluation, but especially with quarterbacks. Variables. And so, but bottom line, no one's going to have the same, or there's not going to be any consensus with these quarterbacks. Never. Even when you have Trevor Lawrence, who was viewed as, the generational guy and, easy quarterback one, he wasn't the quarterback one for every single team. You and I both agreed
that had a 3rd round grade on him.
You and I both agreed he was the best quarterback in that draft. At the time, and obviously now, but at the time there were, some teams had Zach Wilson over him.
Yes, they did.
And he will go down as being the first quarterback drafted because that's what the Jaguars wanted to do at number 1. But if a different team had that first pick, who knows? So it's, and we'll see this year if it is the Bears or whoever ends up picking number 1. They will dictate who will be forever known as the first quarterback drafted in this class.
It's something that goes on your resume. You're number 1. Speaking of that, having that number 1 pick, the next question is from Matt Gravy Train. That's pretty fun. If the number one pick is available for trade, which teams are in a position to give up 3 first-round picks for it? The RG3 trade, basically.
Will it take more than
Well, that would
3
be number 2. You would take more
first
than
round?
3. Yeah,
I
probably,
mean,
right?
first round pick. Just it
Yeah.
depends how many bidders there are, right? Like, people want to look at past deals, really, and that's kind of where the negotiation starts. But if there's more than a couple bidders, I mean, that's going to dictate the price,
Yeah.
what someone's willing to pay. And so when you look at it, let's say hypothetical, Justin Fields goes on a heater, at the last month of the season, and the Bears decide, you know what, we're not going to give him an extension just yet, but we can't cut bait either. Let's ride with him another year. His 4th year of his rookie deal, and we could take Marvin Harrison Jr. at 1, but man, what we could get in a trade, let's do that. So they open it up for trade. That's where it gets really interesting. Is there a particular team to you that you think, okay, no brainer, they have to make a move? I think one team that stands out to me is Vegas.
Yes, that was one of my finalists, I would say.
I mean, they just feel like, I mean, obviously they have to hire a general manager and a head
Yeah.
coach. That's priority 1, before they can take any direction, a next direction moving forward. But they're kind of stuck at quarterback, and
Mhm.
it's a lot to big price to pay to move up, but bring Caleb to Vegas, or May or Daniel, whoever they end up drafting. Vegas was the one team that really kind of flashing in bright lights, like, hey, we need to do this. Let's make a splash.
And also, it's, Mark Davis. It's like,
Yeah,
you never know. Like, that's
that's
why that's a
sure.
great team. And even when I was going into my kind of like finalists, like ones I would kind of want to throw out here, it was kind of like, would they do it? Like, actually, would there be a narrative where they do it? And one that stuck out to me, and probably because they did it for a receiver, trading up so high and giving up a lot, was the Falcons. Totally
Right.
different GM, totally different regime. It's not Thomas Dimitroff anymore. But that was one that stood out to me because of just where they're at as a team. Having the offensive weapons, the offensive line's is decent. They played better, at least thankfully, in the last couple of weeks. And then I think the defense is more vet laden, and of course they need a pass rusher and everything like that. But they have other pieces, and they kind of vetted it up, and they have cap space to kind of make this work. So they were one that was like, I can see it. Like I can
Well,
understand the argument for it.
it probably depends how they finish, right? Because if
Yeah,
if they make the playoffs, if they win the NFC South,
they would be in pick 20 or whatever.
yeah, it
So,
gets a lot harder to do that. But if they say they lose out, say
right.
Tampa or whoever wins that division, all of a sudden they're picking 9th overall, and it
Right.
becomes
Huge
much
difference.
easier. Oh yeah, exactly. So that
That's
that is interesting to
It's all
see
these middle
how.
ground teams. Yeah. Like all the
Mhm.
ones that I thought were the most interesting were all ones that I could see are like the borderline wild card or playoff teams. Vikings were another one just because I'm trying to figure out their future. I feel like they stand
Yeah.
pat and hope something falls to them. Rams, just because I think it would be hilarious where they're
Yeah.
at. And the other one is the Steelers. Was just depending on how their season finishes up because
That is interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
and
and
how
then with Kenny
their
Pickett
team
hurt
makeup is.
now,
Yes.
Pickett being out hurts this team because if I'm a Steelers fan, I was already probably thinking Pickett's my quarterback next year just because it's a franchise that does not move on quickly.
They do not.
From coaches, from anything. So the leash is probably longer for Kenny Pickett, but now that he's out these next few weeks, it's a chance that it's a missed opportunity to evaluate him and
Right.
maybe for the Steelers to realize, hey, this isn't the guy.
Right.
So I think you're right to bring up the Steelers here because I think the right move would be to move on from Kenny Pickett, try to upgrade the position.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're gonna do it.
Yeah, and they're not that kind of aggressive, go for broke
No.
kind of team. They will move up, but not kind of like that. I know they were just one that was like, man, the rest of their team
Mhm.
kind of sits okay for it, like with their defense and what they could do with the run game, their O line. They got some youth in it
Right.
now. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It was one that
Do you
was like, man,
think
yeah.
d the Washington, do you think they've seen enough from Sam Howell that they think he could be the guy? Or do you think that they think he's good, but not
Yeah,
good enough, and we need to make
right.
a move?
I think
New
whoever,
ownership. I mean,
right, that's the big thing with all
Mhm.
this. And also, I could see them doing the whole day one, everybody,
Yeah,
owner,
right.
coach,
Fresh
GM,
start.
quarterback,
Right.
a full fresh slate. And that's why I think they will move on, even if how I struggle with man, because there's times where I'm like, this dude gets it. Holy
Yeah,
crap, look at that
right,
throw. And then he takes 3 sacks in a row. And then it's just like,
right.
like
There are a lot of Baker Mayfield comparisons coming
oh
out,
my
and you
goodness.
can still see it.
How it's unbelievable how much they play alike. Like it's
Yeah,
just it's how they even run similar. Like it's just
right.
they're built the same. It's crazy. But he is I enjoy Hal because it's the classic. Is he fun or is he good? And
Mhm.
that's what I'm still trying to figure it out because he does enough, and I think he does see the game okay. It's got to quicken up. But man, he's so tough.
Right,
It's like and you can tell the player, his teammates love him. So yeah, I'm back and forth
right.
on it. But I think if they did get the Caleb or the Drake of the world, obviously that would be an upgrade. But if they moved up, now to a couple other individual players that I just got a couple replies on Twitter, so I'm just going to throw them in here. Dane, what are your thoughts on Tavondre Sweat from Texas? All 370 pounds of them.
I just say if he gets to 390 at some point in his NFL career, I don't think it'd be that big of a surprise. That's a big boy. Well, he's actually a tight end for me now after
Oh, that's right.
the Big 12 championship game, seeing
He's
him
a
catch that touchdown pass.
he is a YY. He's he's two Y's put together.
Right, yeah.
Tight end.
I mean, he is at the combine, I'm guessing he'll be right around 350. I'm sure he'll, kinda get it in a good spot for him, which I think is 350, but to have the movement skills that he
Right.
has, at 350 is just kinda silly. So,
Yeah.
he's really and I can't wait for this. We'll talk about more, the college football playoffs here and those matchups coming up in a future pod, but that Washington offensive line against that Texas defensive line
Mhm.
is going to be a lot of fun just to evaluate. And Byron Murphy for Texas defensive line, he's a day 2 pick. Tavondre Sweat, I think, is a day 2 pick.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Both these guys are just they're different in what they offer, but they're both disruptive. They both win in different ways. That Texas defensive line, I mean, the reason Texas is in the playoff is that offense and the quarterback playing with consistency with those weapons. But that defensive line is why they have a legitimate chance to go to the national title and potentially win it all because it's not just your typical Big 12 offense that's putting up a lot of points. The defense can make some plays
Right.
too.
Oh, they bullied Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Like it was like they had toyed with them the whole game, both sides of the ball. I mean, Sark was Sark had some stuff up his sleeve. I mean,
Yeah.
very excited to see what they kind of on offense, anyways, what they show in that college football playoff. But yeah, the defense as well. There is something too with hand-eye coordination with the big boys. Like with that's true athleticism.
Hmm.
Like it's I have a theory too about receivers that the receivers with the best hands are the ones that can throw the ball. Ones
Okay.
that can actually, a lot of, receivers have that little sidearm where they kind of let the ball go and it's not actually
Sure.
throwing it how you're supposed to throw a football. It works. The ones that actually can throw the ball with the best arms are the ones that actually have the best hand-eye coordination. It's a theory I've had for
Oh, I
years.
like
I
it.
have nothing to prove it yet. There's also a lot of pass catchers that are lefties. That's another thing
Yeah.
I've always noticed. A lot of tight ends that are lefties. I've always
Hmm.
another thing I'm never studied it, just my own little theory. But big guys with good hands, Terry Poe, true
There you go.
athleticism right there. Warren
Oh yeah.
Sapp had good hands. He
Hmm.
got some touchdowns too. Vrabel. We got all those guys.
Right.
The other player, we got a couple people asked this about this player, which is we've mentioned him earlier, a lot of the quarterback discussions, but Spencer Rattler from South Carolina.
Yeah.
Do you have an updated Rattler take? Because I believe he is going to the Senior Bowl,
Yeah.
which I think is going to be huge for him, maybe more for off-field stuff and interviews.
That's it. The interviews, getting a chance to know him better, that'll be huge for him. But then also, yeah, during practice, because he's as talented as um, any quarterback that will be in Mobile. Just pure talent.
Throwing on air
Now,
is going to be like a fireworks show.
yeah, it will. And in terms of consistency, that's where he just needs to be better.
Yeah.
And because he's a good athlete, he can throw from any platform. Watching the Clemson tape with from what 2 weeks ago or this past
Mhm.
week, he makes some throws where it's like, no, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Oh, wow, great throw! Like it just he his decision making process is. We mentioned with Jayden Daniels how that's been a plus for him.
Yeah.
Not quite the same with Spencer Rattler in terms of
Right.
his decision making process, but he has the arm to get it done, and he's an effective scrambler.
Yes.
Yeah, that quick delivery with the ball. He's got zip. They're physically the talent. There's a lot to like, and the NFL teams are going to like him more than I think fans will.
I
And they'll
think
be
so
kind
too.
of surprised how early he's drafted just because teams are willing to bet on the talent. And I get it, especially at that position, and say, okay, we'll coach him up. And it doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. So, when you're talking about a third round lottery pick, it's day two is always a weird spot for quarterbacks, right?
Yep,
Like we don't really
it
see
is.
a ton of them going round two. And because if you're good enough, you go in round one.
Right.
If you're not, then we're not
And
going to
now
take you in round.
teams are thinking that way too. They're like, "Oh, let's just
Yeah.
wait till around 3 or later."
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And one, we saw, 2 years ago with when besides Pickett, everyone went in the third or fourth
Yep.
round with Ritter and Willis and those guys.
Turned out
But
we were
yeah,
actually right with our grades. I
yeah.
remember my first Bleacher Report grade, I had nobody in the top 30, and I got roasted for it, and I was like, "Well, I don't know, guys. I'm not really seeing any of
Do you
this."
know how many? I fought so many wars of that year who told me Malik Willis was going two to the Lions.
Oh,
It was unbelievable how many people
yeah.
thought that was going to happen, and I was like, guys, I
I
maybe he'll sneak into the late first. That's possible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But guys, he's not going second overall. What are we
I
doing
know.
here? And yeah,
That
I can't wait to see what the version of that will be this year.
Right.
There's gonna be some crazy ones, I'm sure. People just get tired of talking about the same old things, and
That's
they
it.
just,
And then
yeah,
someone gets a new angle, and then that gets
catches. It's like
turned over, turned
fire,
over,
and
turned yes,
yeah,
exactly. I know. That's exactly how it goes. Oh, and we're
but
not even in the thick of it yet. Wait until
yeah,
March.
we'll see Rattler in a few first round mocks, I'm sure, at
I'm
some
sure.
point. Just get
But
some
like
new
you
names
said,
in there.
his highs are so high, and the fact that
Hmm.
he can make every throw, he's willing to make every throw, he can create a decent amount and everything. That's someone's gonna love him. It's the classic where they interview him, they go, it's not he's not cocky, he's just really confident. And that that
Really,
becomes
really, really
really
confident. Yeah,
confident. Yeah. And then that's where and the teams that like
yeah.
him, that's what they'll say. And it's just he's gonna be a guy, he's a great eye of the beholder type quarterback, I think. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm curious how Senior Bowl goes for him, which I actually took it in
I
the
can't
favor.
wait. Yeah,
I
and
know.
it's funny because I'm looking at my notes and I have down like timestamps of, okay, the 2023 Clemson play number 53. I have a lot and I put a little description just so I know which play it is. And I have all these timestamps for Rattler for all the tapes I've watched. And a lot of them are like, not a great decision, but man, what a thrower. What are you doing there? But it's a completion. That's a
Right.
big play. Like it's a lot of descriptions that are like that. Yeah.
That's perfect. I can't
Yeah.
wait. Last question here from Nick Foles, not Nick Foles.
Hmm.
Uh, 33. Is there a major team that because of the system they run makes it easier to scout and project their players and vice versa? Is there a major team that is a pain in the ass to scout and project? Any for you, Dane?
Yeah, and this is something that you go through when you do mock drafts. You learn trends and tendencies of
Mhm.
certain GMs, certain cultures,
Packers
what they
receivers, and
exactly
size thresholds.
right.
Yeah.
I think you like Eagles. Don't mock them a linebacker or running back in the first round.
Nope.
Don't do it. It's not going to happen.
Trenches, receiver, and quarterback.
Corner.
Oh, and quarter.
Corner,
Yes.
yes, they will. Those positions are so. Like last year, I even fell into that trap. I was like, man, if Bijan's there at
Oh,
10,
I know, right?
maybe they do it. Maybe they do it. And then eventually it was like, no, stop. They're not going to do it.
Nope.
It's just not going to happen. And so, yeah, the Eagles are definitely one. I mean, the Cowboys used to be like in the past that Cowboys were not a team that would have drafted Mozzie Smith in the first round.
Right.
They've kind of switched a little bit on that, so that's been interesting. But yeah, no, whenever you do a mock draft, whenever you kind of go through this and look at the history, you always pick up these little tips and trends about, oh well, this team they don't draft corners with arms below 31 inches.
Right. Right.
Like there's all these little things that
Likewise, every player has 34-inch or longer arms.
right, exactly. What about you? Is there a certain team that stands out?
All those types of things you're saying is exactly it. Like back in the day, it used to be gigantic offensive linemen in the Steelers.
Hmm.
It was like
Sure.
exactly the type of guy they were always going off, or my dad too, actually, to be honest. The Colts right now, or who have the highest athletic scores. Yeah,
Right.
okay, that's
Yep.
the Colts big board, every position. Some more scheme stuff is Shanahan zone heavy running backs. Like
Mhm.
that. I kind of had a nice feel for it. Even when I was with the Falcons, I was a big Tevin Coleman fan, and then they drafted him, and I remember just looking around, being like, Hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But and then Eli Mitchell, when he was coming out of Lafayette, I watched him and I was like, this guy would be great in a zone scheme. And then the 49ers took him. Bobby Turner, I know, does a lot for him. Their running backs coach. They're a long,
Right.
long time running backs coach. And I think he's huge in that eval. So yeah, me and Bobby T, we like a couple of the same guys. Certain defensive linemen for those kind of push the pocket type defenses. Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
You know what a Patriots front seven player is going to look like, or
Yeah.
a tweener DB that the Patriots like. Like that's going to be their MO. So like he didn't go there, of course, but Leo Chanel, when he came
Mm-hmm.
out, it was like, oh, Patriots, duh.
Right.
Now he's with the Chiefs. So yeah, show us what I know. And then yeah, but like guys like the Saints defensive linemen, you kind of have a good feel for what they like. Long brawler type, push the pocket types. Titans are kind of like that as well. Falcons now, Bears are now like that with Eberflus, but those kind of guys, I kind of know their type, and so I know I always want to go. Well, they're going to draft one bendy guy, but they just keep
Right.
replenishing with the same type of player. Unless
Right.
Josh Uche is the one exception for the Patriots, but that's one thing. Is more kind of those skill sets that I think some of these teams like on defense.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. That everyone's got their type, right? I mean,
Everybody,
it's
just look at me and my
you.
receivers.
Yeah, I say you and I both. That's human nature.
It
So
is.
yeah, it is interesting how, and
It's
we'll see this because this off season we're going to see a lot of turnover.
mhm.
A lot of head coaches are new head coaches, a lot of movement. We'll see with GMs. So it'll be really interesting how that applies to this draft in
Oh,
terms
right.
of where we see certain matchups working out, and maybe something that made perfect sense in my first mock draft
Right.
might not make any sense in the third mock draft because of some of these personnel changes in the front
Exactly.
office and decision making. So yeah,
So true.
always an interesting part of this whole process.
And then for them, free agency happens, and it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
right.
that's a whole other thing that we.
That's not happening. Right.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. No, but that was a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for sending in your questions. They were very good. Got some things brewing in the brain. Really, got to talk, bringing up Dante's Inferno comparisons to JC Latham.
Love
That's
it.
always a good one. Yeah, but no, thank you guys so much for joining us. We will be here every single Wednesday. Thank you to Dane, and we will see you guys next time.